Amazing. Okay, here we go. So this is the Want workshop, and I'm going to run through kind of the theory and what you have in here, and then invite you to get coaching. If you're watching this on the replay, share your thoughts, share the places that you have questions in the chat. In the chat? No, in the comments. It will be in the comments inside Joy Ambition. And if you're on this live, lovely humans, tap away in the comments or unmute yourselves. Okay, so the reason I created this workshop is because I realized that a lot of us were getting stuck because we had blocks and friction with wanting. So the first thing that I'm going to share with you, because I always like to have like one thing, right? So if you get distracted, your dog starts barking, children need stuff, you get hungry, whatever, there's too many things for you to focus on. I want you to have one thing that you remember. And the most important thing here is that the way our brains work, we are pulled forward by our vision of the future. Okay. So, what we expect to happen in the future is what we're creating, it's what we're moving towards. Now, most of us are not creating big enough dreams, right? We're not excited enough about what's in the future to start to take the action steps. There are different reasons for this. Okay. So, it can be that we don't believe that we can have the things that we think about. Okay. For various reasons, we can have a lack of self-confidence that we can create them, or we can think that it's going to cost so much energy that we feel exhausted even thinking about it, right? So we don't even let ourselves think about it. So what we're going to do today is create, like really start to remove some of that and start to practice this skill of wanting. And the way that I imagined it is like, a puzzle box, okay? Because a lot of us are taking decisions each day, and we are really like, the thing I love about the people I work with is I see myself in you very often. And very often people may seem quiet or they may seem introverted. I know I don't often seem like that now, but I am the most introverted of the extrovert personality types. And we might seem like we're kind of all over the place, or we seem very calm, but underneath that, we are trying, right? There is a tenacity to the people that I work with. And sometimes you don't see it, right? You don't realize just how tenacious you are and just how much grit you have and how you keep pushing forward and you have this hope for what you can create. Now, what we're often doing is it's like, imagine you've got all these pieces to a puzzle and there's like 1,000 pieces and they're on the table and you can see like, okay, I've got some of the yellow bits. I'm building the sun over here. This seems to be a horse, but actually it's turning into a donkey. Oh, it's an owl, right? And then there's like this big bit in the middle where I'm like, I just won't look at that for now because that's a big, like, that's just a very big hole. And that's kind of the whole, now I think about it, is kind of the interesting place because that's very often what we're avoiding, right? And so if you have, I met with a group of women in business this week, and a lot of us are coaches, therapists, artists, creatives, and we want to create something that gives back, create something that supports people, but we haven't prioritized finances or our own self-care. Okay, so the resourcing isn't happening because it feels like the resourcing should come after, right? And that can be the big hole that we're ignoring. So, what we want to do is get the box, the picture on the box, so that we can literally have something to be like, oh, yeah, I'm just missing this. Okay. Or actually, if I turn it this way, I can start to create a lot faster. Now, the amazing thing about humans is that we create that picture. Okay. So, when I talk about being pulled forward, right now, the image that you have in the future, you have created it. Now, you may have created it with paints, with images. In fact, you probably have created it with things that you've been given. Okay, so it might be your financial expectations are based on what you saw your family have. Your expectations for how you will live may be based on people in your socioeconomic group. or people from your background. Your expectations of business might be based on how you've been socialized or your culture. Okay, so we just want to notice, like, okay, I've got these influences. This is how I've been creating. But right now, I'm going to break from that and I'm going to just analyze and think about, is this what I want to keep creating? Or do I want to create a new picture and start to create that puzzle and start to build that? Okay. So a really nice way to do that. Sometimes when I work with, like I've got some amazing clients in China where the attitudes towards business can be that this is, or even Spain, actually, I will say, like, you know, if anyone's watching this from Spain, you'll know that you're generally seen as a little bit crazy if you want to have your own business, right? The safe jobs are jobs with the government or jobs in traditional industries. And what I shared with this client was, number one, the traditional industries are changing so quickly that what may seem like crazy, eccentric, going to the moon thinking when you talk to your parents or your family members today, right? Like software engineers, okay, a couple of decades ago, to be a software engineer was a bit crazy. It was like, why don't you want to be an accountant or a doctor? And now these are the normal jobs, okay? So just have a think about the fact that what is currently crazy will be the norm, and you can be one of the people that makes it the norm, right? Like the 3-day week people, 15-hour work week people. We can also play with, what would your American self do, right? Or what would your, you know, whichever country, because something that I experience immediately when I go to America, and what I love, and usually, okay, I'm going to New York, which isn't America, it's just one microcosm, is this attitude of, yeah, if you can think it, you can do it, right? So a question that I used to ask myself when I was struggling with, you know, selling myself, talking about my strengths, talking about my skills, was I would just quickly say, okay, what's American Emma saying? Right, okay, American Emma is saying this. Now, if you're watching this and you're American and you're like, well, I don't feel like that. Okay, so imagine, like, what would your Los Angeles self do? What would your New York self do? You know, and just really like let yourself play from this place of realizing that your brain is on autopilot. And the way that we create change is to take it off autopilot. And one of the best ways we can do that is we can give it a vision. We can give it a destination. We can say, this is where we're going, right? And the level of confidence, of clarity that we want is, for me, it's like booking a holiday, right? I've booked plane tickets to Rome. I think that was one of the examples of one of the calls recently. Okay, I've booked it. I'm going to Rome. Now all I need to do is sort out the pieces beforehand, right? Book the flights, pick the clothes I'm wearing, decide the restaurants, you know, buy the travel book, whatever. So we want to have it in our head of, like, this is the vision, I've decided it, this is what's happening, and now I'm just executing, I'm just working out the things on the way. And really allow it to be that simple. Because when it's not simple, it's our nervous system responding in panic that, like, I can't do this, it's dangerous, we can't do this. Okay, so I want to share with you some of the things. Okay, so remember, we're pulled forward by our vision of the future. Most of us are not dreaming big enough because of those reasons that I mentioned: culture, socialization, past failure, right? If you've tried to do something in the past and it hasn't worked, your brain has learned that it's dangerous and that it feels bad, okay? But what we want to remember is, just because we failed in the past, it does not mean we will fail in the future, right? I think of this as, there's a very good example from, it was given to me about football. I don't know a lot about football, but I can understand this. So the person being coached plays goal in football. And the guy that was coaching him said, okay, if the opposite, like, I don't know, the person with the ball coming towards you, and they shoot the ball to the left of you 8 times, on the ninth time, do you automatically go to the left and ignore the right? And the guy was like, no, like, it could go either way. Every time it could go either way. So what we want to notice is, past failure has nothing to do with what we will create in the future. It has nothing, okay? You literally get to start again each time. If we allow it to have anything to do with what we're creating, it's data, right? So I want you to really think about training your brain to think, if anything, my past failures mean that I am closer than ever to my success because I know what doesn't work. I have filled in those empty spaces on my puzzle. I've put more pieces together, right? I know that when I try to do something that I don't really want to do, I'm not going to put the full effort into it. Okay. So we don't do that, right? We don't do that anymore. I know that when I work with this person, it's more difficult for me to manage my energy. So I don't do that, right? And we really, failure is either data or we're making it irrelevant and we're looking forward, we're looking to the future. Okay. So, two things that your brain will want to do when you create this vision of the future and you know that you want it, right? You can feel it. You can feel that you want it. You can feel that it's happening. It will try to rush. And this is also why I wanted to create this workshop, and some of the things that I've been doing is it's for me as much as for you, okay? Because I also, the thing that trips me up is rushing and hustling, okay? And we are surrounded by hustle culture. We're surrounded by the idea that doing more means we'll create more, we'll get a result faster. But actually, that creates kind of this industrialization machine where we're not reviewing, we're not evaluating. And so, things that hustle creates is panicky decision making, forcing something we don't necessarily believe in. And this can create varying levels of not enjoying the situation you're in. And I think of this as something like I set up an English teaching school when I was living in Madrid because I had more clients, I had more students than I could handle. I was working 7 days a week. Everybody was telling me I was so good at it. You're so good at it. Now you need to do a school. So, and my partner at the time, like, oh, just set up an academy. Okay. Because that's what everyone was doing, right? They would go, they would get more clients. You might see this in your industry, right? The traditional pattern, it's like the go to high school, go to university, get married, get a Labrador, have kids, get a semi-detached house, right? Go like this. And a lot of our industries, it's get one-to-one clients, start to do group offers, from group offers, do self-study, then do this, raise your prices. But maybe we don't want to do that, right? And if we don't want to do that, then we've always got some resistance. And because our energy is going on trying to convince ourselves that we do want to do it, we make reactive, panicky decisions. Okay. We get so tired that we can't create that space. Okay. And we have such a horrible experience quite often. Let's say we do achieve it, that we don't want to do it again, right? And I've had a lot of my clients have achieved really big goals and then they've just felt horrible afterwards, right? They felt really like that. I just don't want to do that again. Like, I've done it. I don't want to do it again. So, what we want to focus on is how we are wanting things authentically, enjoying the experience, like really changing this. Hustle also fuels a lack of self trust because it means that we're looking externally. So when I was in hustle mode, I was constantly buying new courses. Like, I think the worst was I remember panic buying. It was like a 3 a.m. Pinterest course because I thought I have to, like, I've built this business, I have employees, I have to pay them, I need students, but I don't want to teach them because I don't want to teach English. So I need to bring them in, but I don't want to be on Instagram because I don't want to talk about English things on Instagram. Pinterest, that will mean I don't have to talk to people. I'll use a Pinterest course, right? And all that's doing is increasing the lack of self trust. Whereas self trust, rupture and repair, right? Repairing that relationship, that repairing that rupture that you have with yourself, where you let yourself say, hey, maybe we don't want this. Okay. And making it safe. And it's exactly the same as, when I was listening to the little voice at the end of a very positive, very long relationship, 9 years, but the last year, there was this little voice that was like, I don't think we're happy. And I was like, shut up. Everyone says we're amazing. Okay. And the same for him, right? These little, both getting this little voice. Okay, so what we want to do is create safety to listen to that voice, right? And to have that relationship where we trust ourselves. And it doesn't have to be 100% of the time. We're not looking for perfectionism. But when we break that trust with ourselves, we repair it. You know, we say like, you were trying to talk to me and I wasn't listening. It's because I had 5 coffees and I was tired. Okay, I won't do that. Sorry. Right. It also keeps us staying in the same patterns, right? Anytime that we are hustling and we're stressed and we're tired and we're exhausted, very often we keep doing the same thing. And then rather than noticing that and practicing curiosity, we just judge ourselves. We blame ourselves. This is because I'm not disciplined enough. If I could just wake up an hour earlier, if I could just do this, if I could just do that, right? And we stay in the same patterns. And ultimately, we burn out, right? Hustle is going in one direction. We burn out. There's different levels of it. It might be that you just burn everything down. It might be that you get incredibly sick every time you take a holiday. I used to get like lose my voice. I think last year's the first year I didn't lose my voice, actually. Interesting. So you can start to notice these things. Procrastination is like the best buddy of hustle as well, because hustle, I'm going to put forward my belief, hustle is also a form of procrastinating, right? Because when we're hustling, we're doing lots and lots of busy work and we look very, very busy. And it reminds me of, I used to have, I might have shared this example before, but I had clarinet lessons when I was in high school. And the cello teacher at the end of the musical didn't have many students for whatever reason. So she was always like looking busy. So she'd just like walk up and down, like she'd take a piece of paper and put it at the top of the corridor and then come back. And my clarinet teacher, Richard, just used to watch her and he was like, she's trying to look busy. Okay. But that's what a lot of us are doing. When we go to, oh, I must update the colors on my website, just quickly ask yourself, like, what am I not doing? So that I update the colors on my website, what am I not doing? And it might be you're not selling, or you're not raising your prices, or you're not having a conversation you think is going to be complicated, or you're not just letting yourself be with yourself. This is where personality tests can be really interesting. I shared a couple in our community this week. I think the Enneagram is a really fun one for this. My Enneagram is an Enneagram 7, right? So if you do them, then share in the community, because if you're watching this workshop, you'll have access to the community. And I can give you some tips on what to do with that. But an Enneagram 7 is very optimistic, very enthusiastic. They do not like to feel pain, right? Which I thought was everybody, but it's not. So we will really avoid when we think something's going wrong or we think that there's the possibility that it's going to feel uncomfortable. Busy, busy, busy. Double down on work. Fill the social calendar. Avoid feeling the discomfort. So one of my power moves, part of my success blueprint now, is when I notice I don't feel good, I stop everything and I listen to that, right? And that's how I get out of that procrastination of hustle and busy work. Depending on the tools that you've learned. So I have put for you here, there's like a 7-day course called the Procrastination Detox. And it has more information for you. If you're curious about diving deeper into procrastination and getting out of it, I've added that resource. So I definitely recommend having a look at it. You don't have to do it day by day. You can do it all in one afternoon if you want. But just to realize that procrastination, it's not because you're lazy, it's not because you're undisciplined, like there's something deeper going on. So we just want to take a look at it, just see what's happening, right? The fastest way to stop procrastinating is to really want what you want. Okay. And that's why we're doing the want workshop. When we want something authentically, we move. Sorry, hitting my pen. Now, that doesn't mean we move forward fast. It doesn't mean we move forward with zero fear, with zero trepidation. In fact, it can be the example that's coming to my mind is I decided this summer that I was going to learn how to swim. I'd always had a fear of water, of like water coming above, I don't know, my ankles, for various reasons that I will dive into at another time. But I one of my things I wanted to learn to do, my future self, she surfs, right? She does surfing. Mm-hmm. Um, and so the next step to take me to being someone who surfs is learning to swim. So we have a swimming pool at my house. So I bought my swimming costume and I went on my own to like go and get in the swimming pool. So my only goal was to get in the swimming pool. And as I got in the water, it was cold and I felt terrified and I could feel my nervous system. And I was saying to myself, it's okay. We go as slow as you want to go. We go as slow as we want to go. Right. And I got in and I stayed in for like a few seconds. I let go of the side. I swam across. I did one width and then I got out again. Right. So someone who's surfing might, you know what, they might recognize that moment actually and see it for what it was and be like, bloody well done. Or they might think like, that's not going to get you surfing. You need to do way more. But I know that it's already happened in the future now because I've started to take action steps towards it. Okay. So it's from an authentic place because I've checked in with why I want to do it. It's for the challenge, it's for the freedom. I want that experience. I want to be somebody who can do this. It's aligned with the things that I enjoy. I do a lot of things with balance, like yoga and aerial silk. And it's a very big fear that I have. And I want to be able to have the love for myself and the growth that I know I will develop to achieve this goal. Okay, so that's wanting something authentically. It's not about proving anything. It's not about a time frame. I don't have to do this in the next 30 years. I might become a surfer by like when I'm 90. That's fine with me. Okay, so we're not putting time pressure on ourselves. So we start to behave differently. I've given the example here as well of like, you know that you're doing something when you take an action step, right? You want a glass of water, you go from there's a point of like, oh, I feel thirsty too. I'm getting the glass of water, right? That's another example. Um, we want to notice what's happening in that space between the want and the action, because that's the information that tells us why we don't have the thing. Okay. There's going to be a thought. And sometimes the thought is so fast we don't catch it, right? Because it's very often it's subconscious. This is why I really like saying things out loud, having a practice of noticing, can you say what you want out loud, right? Can you say, I want this kind of relationship? I want to feel like this in my body. I want to make this much money. I want to change this, right? Like we have a goal. I have a goal of ending homelessness in Toulouse. I have had that on my mind for a very long time and I couldn't say it out loud because I thought people would think that I was an idiot, that I was a fantasist, blah, 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 blah. And at a certain point, I realized if I can't say this out loud, I can't start to create it. Okay. So I need to start to apply that self compassion of being okay with failing, right? But saying it out loud. Now, as soon as I said it out loud, I was with a group of women on my coffee and a walk on Wednesday. I got like 4 or 5 other volunteers who all had different ideas. Okay. One of them, she might watch this later, she'd been thinking about women who menstruate and how they get access to sanitary products when they're on the street. For me, it was thinking about how do the dogs get food, right? So all of us had different ideas. And I realized by me having the self trust to say what I want out loud, being okay with people laughing at me, it meant that I was then able to activate people around me helping me and supporting me. And now I'm not on my own. Now there's a group of us and we're having our first meeting today. Okay. So we just want to notice, how are we stopping ourselves? What is the thought that's knocking us? And once we know what it is, then we can move forward. We don't need to not think things, right? But once we know what they are, we start to get unstuck. We start to create that movement. We can move forward slowly. And again, I always say this to people in my community and people I coach. It can be very difficult. Be prepared for it to be very difficult. But more importantly, I want you to prepare for the fact that it might be easy. It might be as easy as just noticing the thought, right? This is the example I always give of taking a pebble out of your shoe. If you've been walking your whole life and some joker has been putting a pebble in your shoe before you put it on, right? struggling to walk is just your normal, it's just how you walk. And then I take the pebble out of your shoe. You don't have to learn to be comfortable. Like it might feel unusual, it might feel like a lot lighter, it might feel like weird that it's so easy, but from that point on, you're just walking more comfortably. Okay. So really focus on the fact that wanting things, creating change, it can be easy. It can be so easy as well. And again, that's one of my success blueprints steps is I start by saying to myself, this is easy, right? And I'll write at the top of the page, this is easy. And then I put everything after that and it does something, it shifts something in your brain. Okay. So we've already talked about this, but how wanting and articulating what you want is a skill because of these reasons that I've mentioned. Okay. So what we want to do is to start to think about, okay, how would I improve any other skill? How have I improved skills in the past? Right? It's repetition, it's tweaking, it's being conscious, it's deciding to improve the skill. Now I've got a checklist for you here, which is something to go through when you have a goal or a project, just to check in with why do you want this, right? Or how are you wanting it? So the first thing is I would always do a body check-in. This is something I practice at the start and at the beginning. And a body check-in is just literally, it can be as simple as just putting your hand on your chest, another hand on your stomach, and just asking yourself, like, how do I feel? I like to close my eyes because it just helps me to connect. But just to notice, like, is your jaw tight? Okay. And you can literally like just move your tongue around the inside of your mouth, which will relax your jaw. How do you feel in your shoulders, the back of your neck? How do you feel in your throat? A lot of us will get a tightness in our throat. And apparently that's the communication chakra. I used to have this a lot. So if you were ever told that you were too loud when you were a child or told to be quiet, you may have a feeling of lack of safety for speaking up. So again, we don't need to change it. We just notice it. How do you feel in your chest? Does it feel light? Is there movement? How do you feel in your stomach? Is there a knot? Does it feel cold? Do you feel sick? You know, just really like, just quickly go through and check in, and you don't have to change anything. So then we ask, is the want coming from expansive energy? Right? Is this coming from looking forward, from possibility, from active creativity? Okay. And we'll know that we've got that because your chest will feel open. Well, it might not. You might have a different feeling. So you want to start to recognize, okay, for me, my chest feels open and I feel this real like lightness. I can feel like this lightness and like butterflies. Okay. Oh, I'm just going to check the chat. Is that Joe? Not sure if you're sharing a presentation or not, but not sure if the checklist now is something you should. Can you see it? I am sharing a presentation. Can you not see the check? Oh, can you see my screen? You can't see my screen. You can just see me. What? Oh no. We have to click on a second tab. Oh, okay, wait, let's start this again. Hang on. Oh shit, maybe the recording. Okay, if you're watching this on the replay, apologies. Share, let's see. Now can you see my screen? Yes. Oh man. Okay, just to make you like just to let you know, I once sat through a movie in the UK in Manchester for 40 minutes. We had a black screen, and because we were mostly British or had been conditioned to British culture, nobody said anything. We were all just like, "Oh, maybe it's supposed to be a black screen." Oh, lovely humans. Here we go. You've got all of these. These are all the notes. So you'll have these, you'll have these. This link will take you to the procrastination detox. This is the checklist. Sorry, should I? No, don't worry. That's great. Sorry, I wasn't making eye contact and I was looking at this. Yeah, I'll send you. I always like to send my Notion so that you can put your notes onto it, you can change it, you can play with it, because I like a Notion. Oh, crikey. Okay. There we go. First fail of the day. It's done now. Okay, so here's our checklist, the Wanting Authentically checklist. So is the one coming from expansive energy? So this is where we're checking in with our body. How does our body feel? Or is it contractive energy? It's we want something from fear, reactivity, or avoidance. The simplest way to check this is, are you, when you think about what you want, right? Again, it's speaking out loud. So I'm going to ask you the question now. What do you want? And if you're watching this on the replay, just pause, say out loud what it is, okay? And then I want you to notice the language you're using. Because very often I'll ask people what they want, and they'll say, well, I don't want to be working in an office. I don't want to feel like my hours are controlled. I don't want to feel so tired. And they go straight to what they don't want. So when we go straight to what we don't want, we are creating in reaction to the thing we don't want. That's limiting. Okay, that puts us back in this cycle. Whereas when we look forward and we think about, okay, what do I want? Now we can see everything ahead of us. Right. And I, again, don't underestimate like the resistance, the mental energy that gets taken when we're creating from what we don't want. And it's just a skill. The simplest tool that I have that I've shared with many of you many times, Bettina, I'm sure you've heard me say this many times. So, but I'm going to keep saying it, is literally to turn my head forward. And I can remember doing that when I was living in Spain and I was in my little village and Rita was sick. So I was driving to and from the hospital. So I was doing a lot of my healing and my work on myself while I was on those drives. I decided to use the time in the car. I had like 2 or 3 hours a day of just like nothing, just beautiful landscape. And I decided to use that time to process things. So what I would do was notice when I was looking backwards and I would just turn my head. And I'd just remind myself. So I used to imagine like a signpost of back and forward, but physically turning my head really trained me to notice when I was looking backwards. It completely changes how you set your goals. It completely changes them. Secondly, is this authentic? Do you want this because it's aligned with your values? Or is it possible it's coming from someone or somewhere else? Now, these two things can both be true, right? There can be like, what do you call them? One of those, it's the Leonardo da Vinci thing. You can have at the same time, somebody wants you to do something and you want to do it. But if you're doing it because of them, you're losing yourself, right? So the energy is coming from external. How do you know if you're dreaming big enough? So I would say it's the feeling in the body, right? When you're dreaming big enough, there is like a physical response, okay? And there is almost this like, for me, it's like finding the edge of, like I can even feel it in my body now when I think about like what my goal is and I'm thinking about the chateau and having like this sanctuary and there's almost this like like gasp and then like oh my god, like it's going to be hard, okay, and then like and that's okay, right? So it should feel, it's the same as when we work in flow, should be pushing you, right? It should feel like it's just touchable, but with resources, with development, with support. Okay. And that, I'm giving you a really big example here because this is something that I've been practicing for a long time. But I always use this example, opening the jar of tuna, right? Or getting to one yoga class a week. For me, creating the space to go to the yoga studio once a week, that felt like I had to move mountains. I had to take control of my calendar. I had to tell people I wouldn't be available on a certain day. I had to work out how I would do all of these things. And now I go 4 times a week. And literally, like people said to me this week, my social life is organized around your yoga classes because it's a non negotiable, right? So it's going to be your big, it's not somebody else's big, right? And you'll also know if you say it out loud and you feel nothing. So this often happens with financial goals, right? This is why I don't personally set financial goals. It's not because I don't want to make money. I love money. Money for me is a fascinating tool. It makes things easier. A lot of the things that I want to create will be much easier with money, but it doesn't motivate me. So, whereas my best friend was always very motivated by making money. So, she has a lot of impact. She helps a lot of people, but the tool she used to access that was making money, right? Whereas for me, what I do is I focus on how can I create products and situations and communities, and then the money happens as a side effect of that. Okay, so that's where it comes. Again, it's not about not wanting the same objective. It's how you're getting to that objective and how does that tool work for you. Let me know if that answered your question in the chat, or if not, feel free to follow up on that. I would also say the want checklist, are you committed? Right? Are you all in? Yes, but I think now some of my values are in conflict. Exactly. That will happen. Right? That will happen. So when we don't have a result, values are such a good way to check in. What I want to offer you, because I just had this experience 3 weeks ago. So I started a marketing and sales course with a coach. I'd bought it, I think I bought it like 18 months ago. It was a very big investment. I bought it, I was ready to go all in, and I didn't do it. Right? I got really defensive. I got really annoyed about it. And this time round, I thought, well, okay, I've paid for it. I'm very clear on my business and my goals. And she was doing a live round this time with coaching calls. And one of my commitments is if there's the opportunity to get coached, I get coached. So I was like, let's do it. And so I scheduled my one-to-one coaching sessions so that I've got one every other week as I go through this course. And the very first lesson, I felt really weird. And I felt like, no, I'm not doing this. I got coaching on it and I realized one of the things that she says is you need to remember people are selfish. Now, I do not agree with that. Is so against my worldview and my values completely that I was stuck. At that point, I was like, well, none of this will work because I don't believe people are selfish. So we checked in with my values and I replaced the word. So every time she says selfish, I just say people are busy, right? People are busy. So make your email title snappy. People are busy. So make the Instagram post shorter, right? And so I'm still using the same system, and now I'm having so much fun. I'm getting coached. I'm loving it. But where there is a word or there is something in conflict with my values, I just change it and I align it with myself and my values. Okay. How does that feel? Does that help? Keep one eye on the chat and then go to the next point. So, are you committed? Are you all in? Are you prepared to fail, to have your heart broken? Now, let it marinate. Perfect. Yeah, feel free to post more in the chat afterwards. This is a really big one because the skill of wanting is not having. And this is like a kind of mind bendy thing that it took me a lot of work to get my head around. When we want something, for me, it's almost like being in a relationship. It is like being in a relationship. For me, the relationships that I want in my life is we're both choosing to be in them and to give them everything, our honesty, our vulnerability, our hopes, our dreams. And there is the risk that the other person says, I don't want to be in this anymore. And it will hurt. And it will hurt so much more because you have given and opened up all along the way. Now, do you want to protect yourself from that hurt, but not open yourself up to that love and the experience of being somebody who trusts and is available for that, and not have your heart broken? Okay. So for me, when I want something, I know that I'm going to grow as a person, change as a person by being the person who goes all in on trying to create this. And if I don't, I will still have learned. I will still look after myself. I will still be in a wildly different place. Now, an example of this I'll give is one that was on, I know, Monkey, sorry, on a call yesterday. And in fact, if she's watching this, thank you for the example, which was about applying for a job where she realized that she didn't have everything they were asking for, but she decided to do it anyway. Now, I recommend everybody does this anyway. If you're working in an industry, you don't work for yourself. One of my favorite things that I saw was a job application from, I think it's Cara Lowenthal, she's like the feminist coach. And she said, if you don't think that you have enough qualifications for this job, I want you to apply for it anyway. Okay, because if you look at the data, men will usually, not all men, not everybody, but the vast majority of men will apply for jobs when they don't have everything on the list. The vast majority of women will wait until they have everything on the list, and even then, they'll probably think they don't have the right amount of experience. Okay, so just having that as a strategy, and I use this in dating, I knew that because of the 80% negativity bias, I knew that I wouldn't see myself the way other people see me. So I decided that I was going to punch above what I thought was my weight, right? And if I had the thought of like, oh my God, he's too good looking, or oh, he's too successful, I was like, match with them, match with them. And this strategy was very good. And of course, then you get to know the person and you balance with each other and you rebound, you recover from that kind of vulnerability jump, right? But I really think I call it like strategic cheekiness. Have a practice of being strategically cheeky. And at the same time, this woman didn't get the job, but she learned so much from it. And she was able to say that actually, I really think I'm now getting opportunities because I applied for that job, right? They know my face. I've had conversations. I've been in the room. It shifted things. So it wasn't about getting the job. That wasn't the result. It was about becoming the person who applies for the job when they know they don't have the qualifications, but they're going to try anyway, right? Who do you become when you're strategically cheeky, when you ask for more than you think you can have? Okay, super fun. And then we write out the one, should put here, say it out loud, and then do a final body check-in. Okay, so just notice, do you feel tingly excited, a bit scared? It feels like this is at the edge of what you can do, but it's aligned with your values. Now we move forward. Now, I've also put a link to another personality test. Oh no, this is the first personality test that I put in here. The 4 tendency quiz. I would also recommend, and Bettina, I definitely recommend you take this if you haven't already, because it has like 4 profiles of motivation. So often, if we're stuck and we're not doing things and we're like, no, like I definitely want this. I think I'm capable. I'm getting support. I'm doing all of these things. Let's see. Upholder, exactly. Yeah, right. So upholders, I won't go into it because people might not know what it is on this call, but yeah, have a look at like no worries, Joe. Have a lovely day. See you later. Have a look at how the motivation for the upholder works. So often when we get stuck, it's because our motivation is not aligned, right? So all we need to do is to tweak it, work with our motivation, and then we can get back on track. So I found it very, very helpful. Okay, so there are 2 exercises for you, and I'm not going to pause on the recording because of the time, because I want to respect the time. That's something I'm learning to do, but I'll share them with you here. I recommend setting a timer for 10 minutes, right? Getting a coffee, set a timer for 10 minutes, really let yourself either journal, write your answers to these questions, add some more, or use a transcription app like Otter to speak out loud. And just really like when I started to do this, I was walking Rita and I put my headphones in And I would just talk through these questions. Some of them you'll find are very useful. Some of them, just use them as a starting point. And in fact, I'd love for you to add in the community the things that you add to it, the extra questions, like where do you go into? What I want you to do is imagine your life 12 months into the future. And there are conditions to this game. So you first need to imagine that you've worked out how to make the money, learn the skills, build the network that you need to create everything that you want. Okay. So we really want to do it like some people will imagine they've won the lottery. Some people will imagine that, I don't know, a distant relative has died and you've inherited a castle, or like do what you need to do to let your brain play, especially if your brain has been trained to be realistic in inverted commas or don't hope for too much, right? If you have family that's, have taught you to limit yourself, be aware of that and balance it by really leaning into experimenting with what you need to be creative. You may find that 12 months feels way too far, that you can currently only imagine 3 months ahead. Okay, so do 3 months. You might find that it doesn't feel like long enough. So make it a 5-year goal, a 10-year goal. Like just know yourself, be honest. If you're struggling, tweak it, right? And play with it. Do what you need to do to access the daydreaming part of your brain, right? You might want to change location. You might want to go get a glass of wine or have a coffee in a cafe or a bar, or go to an art gallery first. Like really nourish, stimulate your senses. So there are various questions, and I recommend that you go through them and then you pause. And what I've put here is the anchor. So this is something, I have my anchor written at the top of every one of my day and week templates. So as soon as I am planning my day, I read my anchor out loud. I used to have an audio recording of it and I would listen to the audio recording, and then I lost it. And it's really annoying because it's really good. So I could do it again, but it hasn't really changed in 3 years. And that's what's really interesting is you will start to shed the things that are not authentic, and you'll start to really lean into and strengthen the things that are authentic, the things that you really do want. So a couple of sentences. I think I've shared them with you before. My current one is very much, it's me sitting on the steps of the property that we have. I'm leaning on my partner, I'm holding a hot chocolate, and I can hear the team inside talking about what they've done. We're getting ready for an event in the evening. Rita is in front of me. She's snuffling. She's not on her lead because we have an enclosed space. And the sun is on our faces. It's autumn sunshine. And I'm just really like processing the day and getting ready for the evening. And that is what I connect with. And I have the clothes that I'm wearing because I'm quite tactile. So I like to know, like, I'm wearing riding boots, I've got jeans, I've got a soft cardigan, it's wrapped around me. I can feel my partner's jumper that he's wearing. I know the texture. Okay, so really make it sensory because your brain doesn't know the difference between what has actually been physically experienced and what is imagined. Like it just doesn't. There's a very interesting book by a guy called Anil Seth, which is all about how the brain works and consciousness. So I can share that with you if it's useful. But what we can do is we can really make it more possible for us to achieve these goals by starting to build that vision in our head so our brain is getting used to it, right? And it's not this unknown. Think about that puzzle. If our brain can see the box, it's focused on building the puzzle. If our brain can't see the picture, it's like, well, this is a fool's errand. We could be eating chocolate or watching Netflix, right? So we want to understand how everything works and then use those tools. Now, the second step is meeting your future self, creating a very clear visual of the person who creates this vision. So I've got questions for you here. And again, like take a little break, okay? Go through it. What skills have you developed? How are you taking decisions? Hello, Bettina, I'm still here. Hello. Oh, it just cut out, but I'm back. Okay, amazing. I'm here. So we want to go through and build out a picture of who your future self is, right? What skills have they developed? How are they taking decisions? How do they care for themselves? What's their relationship like with technology? Like, Again, add questions to this as much as you want. And we want to build a picture of them. Okay. And then you're going to get journal prompts this week that will help you dive into that. And at the end of the week, you'll be able to say, my future self, and have like a name for them. So I used to call mine, she was like sensual alegria. Okay. She was like happiness. She looked after herself. She did things for her body. You know, she really took time to look after herself. So that was the version of me. She was very powerful. She wasn't rushing. And that was a way for me to touch. So we want that anchor to the vision, and then we want that touchstone of the version of us that has created it. Now, the third thing I'm going to ask you to do is, again, take a little break, right? So 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. Take a break between these so that you can just practice putting that space in. Is to then write down what are the 3 easiest, simplest next steps that you could take to bring you closer to the vision. Write them down. And I really want you to put like things you can do in 10 minutes or less. Okay, so I have a list of, on my very big to-do list pad, it has written at the top 10-minute tasks. I write 10-minute tasks and then I write my to-do list because it's trained my brain to automatically break the tasks down so that they're 10 minutes or less. Because again, I know when I have a big goal that feels big, it feels like I'm going to really stretch myself with this, but not break. There are things that I can do to make it much more likely. I quit caffeine, right? That's the first thing I do. I cut out caffeine so that I know that I'm going to be like managing the anxiety is going to be easier. I clear my social calendar. I schedule coaching sessions. I schedule, and like by clear it, I don't mean I get rid of it. Like I pick my days that I have social time. So it's Wednesday and Sunday. Okay. I schedule my yoga classes. I take all the decisions that I can to set myself up for success. And I break tasks down into 10 minutes because I know if I'm feeling overwhelmed and stressed, something that takes more than 10 minutes, it's going to cost more energy to persuade my brain to do it. So we just put 10-minute tasks. So then I say like, well, it's just 10 minutes. Let's just sit down for 10 minutes. See how you feel after 10 minutes. Okay. And then ask yourself, what is one thing from your vision or your anchor that you can do right now to connect with it each day? So when I was still in my village in Spain, the first time before I went to France and then came back and then had to come back to France, my vision, my anchor for France, what did I call it? Was it Project? No, Project Croissant was the second one. Maybe it was Project Garden. I can't remember, but it was all about like getting to France during the COVID pandemic. And I had this image of myself in the garden with Rita having my cup of coffee. And I'm laughing because now I know the reality because I've done it. And the garden was a jungle. And the chair was like this plastic deck chair. And Rita had to be on a lead in the end because there were so many toxic plants in the garden that I couldn't let her off the lead because she'd die. But you know what else? There were all these trees, enormous trees. There were deer, there was bird song, there were all these things that I didn't even know I was going to experience yet. Like it was amazing. It was 1,000 times more amazing than I thought it would be. And so I used to take my coffee and I would go sit. Like if you know me from Instagram, you'll have seen um, the space that had the church and it had the view of the valley. And I would have my coffee there to imagine it. So pick that one thing, okay, so that you can. Oops, I'll just go back to sharing this. Pick that one thing, right? So you've got your anchor to connect with, and then you've got one thing that you can start to do each day, okay? And that is how we start to bring the two closer together. Okay, so if you're watching this on the replay, you will also have access to the Strategic Daydreaming Journal, and that's going to give you 7 days of prompts. And if you have questions, you can post them in. Let me see if I can just quickly show you in here. There's like a space inside the platform, which is along the left-hand side. This is exactly the same as your app. So if you don't yet have Joy Ambition, the app, you can download it. Okay, so it's in here. It's the Want Workshop. So this is us. and I'll put it here. Okay, so I'll put the journal for you and I'll share it in the chat and you'll be able to access it, and then you'll be able to post your questions on this post. Okay, I'm going to stop recording. Stop recording.